everyone, Materim here again with another RPG Talks video. And this one is going to be focusing on a question that I get asked a lot by people who are trying to get into GMing, particularly D&D and in the old school variety. Should we create our own world, or should we use the published campaign settings? Now, perhaps this isn't as important a question for some of the folks who are playing newer editions of Dungeons and Dragons, but one of the things that made second edition so amazing was the wealth of published campaign materials that setting or that edition had. I mean, you had everything from your traditional fantasy in terms of the Greyhawk or the Forgotten Realms. You had sort of the more romanticized fantasy in terms of the Dragonlance. You had some very strange campaign settings in terms of the Planescape and Spelljammer, where you even got in some of the science fiction stuff. Or even your post-apocalyptic style games in terms of Dark Sun. And during the life of second edition, each of these worlds were supported and had material published for them in a level that is frankly insane by today's standards, and if we're being honest, probably a contributing factor to the fall of TSR during this time. They did come up with a lot of great materials, a lot of great worlds, but there frankly just was not enough business to support all of them. So it's unlikely that the current or modern editions of the game, or even the editions going forth, are going to have anywhere near the kind of support that was had during this golden age of Dungeons and Dragons, at least from my point of view. Now, that being said, I was, as those of you who have seen my previous RPG Talks videos know, I was born and bred in second edition Dungeons and Dragons. I have collected many of the supported materials, and in fact, one of my personal bucket list items is to make sure that I have everything published by TSR for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons during the entire run of second edition. And when you look at a collection like that, there's a lot of stuff to draw from. Now, all that being said, I have pretty much exclusively, and certainly from after high school, college, and later, have run in a homebrew campaign world. So the question that I get asked a lot is, well, you obviously love second edition, you love these products that are come out, why then put in the effort in making a homebrew world? And the answer to that, I think, comes down to the strengths and the weaknesses of both. And I'm going to that's going to be my overarching discussion point for this video here, is discussing what I see as the strengths and the weaknesses of published campaign settings versus a homebrew setting. And now, while I am not going to be speaking of any particular setting, I may draw in examples. This is more just in general terminology. So, first things first. The first question I would ask a GM in determining this question is, do you want easy or do you want a lot of work? It's pretty safe to say that the easier path is certainly to make use of these published materials. They are put out for that very reason, and you get to have the ease of having someone else get you started, set those building blocks, set that stage. And it does make things very easy. It takes a lot off the plate of a GM, and particularly a new GM. So to that end, I definitely think, depending upon how comfortable you are with the game and how much work you want to put in it, both before the game actually begins and during your campaign, I think published adventures have quite a lot to offer. Now, on the other hand, creating your own world from scratch is difficult. Or let me rephrase that. It's not all that difficult to create a world. What it is difficult to do is create a world that feels real to the players, and one that doesn't feel like you are just ripping off any given idea that that you read anywhere else at any given moment. That is going to take a lot of work. If you start from the ground up, you are talking about everything from the gods and how they interact to the flora and the fauna and the politics of various nations and races and groups and what have you. And it can be very daunting. That's why, at least with my world of Megana, which I've been running since I was a sophomore in high school, so we're looking at 15, 16, 17 years, somewhere in that range, for how long I've been running on this specific game world. But when you start, it certainly helps to have a point of reference. And to that end, I think the basic D&D books are very good for that. They, in a lot of ways, go off of sort of a default, what's the word I want to say? A default ecology for their various monsters and whatnot, which are very easy to pour in and kind of give meaning within your particular world. And so I definitely recommend that. It does take some of the planning stress away from a new DM. But what it allows you to do, because you aren't going off of something someone else created, those building blocks are yours. If you have a particular idea that you think is awesome, that's in. And it can be the smallest little things that turn into these huge, important, and very interesting facets of your game world. For instance, for me, in real life, I was a religious studies major. That's where my focus and training for college is. And so I find theology and the interactions of various religions throughout history endlessly fascinating. And so I put an intense amount of focus into the gods and the religions and the faiths of my game world. And it makes them very real. Players of mine who have played for any length of time on my game world, you simply have to mention one of these gods or one of these religions, and it instantly brings a certain reaction, a mental understanding to the player, just like it would if you mentioned a follower of a particular religion in real life. Because those things have become such strong building blocks, and they're so recognizable, they help give the world its flavor. Now, the other thing that's, I think, a benefit to creating your own world is that you are, in essence, the final arbiter of it. With a published world, particularly if you're playing with players who are more learned, more knowledgeable of that world, it can make you timid. You can be afraid of sort of stepping out of bounds and being corrected by the fluff lawyers, if we'll call it that. And that's something you see a lot of GMs do with these published worlds, and it loses them the control over the story that you need to bring a proper game to being. There's nothing more twitch-worthy of having the start-in flavor text for your adventure, and you get 3 sentences in, and somebody in the back goes, "Well, no, that doesn't really work because those that god doesn't his followers don't interact with this situation that you said there." Blah 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 blah. And while many GMs can kind of take it and roll with it and just be like, "Hey, this is what we're doing," you see a lot of GMs who back off that point, and they start backpedaling and changing things. And once you have laid yourself at the mercy of either a fluff or a rules lawyer, you're their bitch. It really is. One of the things that you have to do as a DM is maintain your level of control over the game. You have to demand respect from the players, and you have to act in a manner that makes you worthy of that respect. And that includes standing up to folks who think they are going to know better than you in your game. Now, that may be a slight little tangent, but it does show the benefit of your own created game, particularly for newer DMs who may be relying on those settings as a crutch. And once something that doesn't smell right to the players gets out, then they're going to be doubting you. They're going to be looking for the mistakes, and it really breaks the sense of immersion. It really just undermines what you're trying to do and create a world that the players can understand and be a part of. A world that makes sense. If they're expecting you to make mistakes all over the place, they're going to be looking for those holes, and it lets them sort of get in to that mindset less. The other thing that I think you really get a benefit of in terms of making your own world is that it makes it unique. I mean, I can't tell you how many games I played in the Forgotten Realms. They all kind of blend together, because it's all the same world. You're dealing with the same things, the same understandings. Unless a DM is particularly brilliant or particularly terrible, there's not much to set it off one side or the other. And because they're all just Forgotten Realms games, whatever. Whereas, if you make your own world and you truly make it something different, the players are going to remember it. They're going to remember your world, and they're going to remember the time that they had in it. And it makes it very, very special. You'll hear stories of people telling tales of campaigns they've had because those unique things stick into their minds. Now, you may take a lot of what I've said as being very biased. Now, I don't think that there's anything wrong with running published games. I think a GM can go a long, long way with what came out in 2nd edition. I mean, and God knows they came out with a lot in 3rd edition and some stuff in 4th. So regardless of what edition you play, those published supports are out there. And if they're not, I'm sure you can find various fan sites and stuff where other people can contribute to your game. And they can be great. I mean, I've had good campaigns in those settings. But I guess the biggest thing is, even if you are choosing a published campaign campaign setting, make it your own. Do not feel like you are slave to canon. You definitely want to... I mean, you don't want to throw everything out, because there's a reason... I mean, if players are interested in playing a Forgotten Realms campaign, you don't want to throw out everything that makes that recognizable as the Forgotten Realms. But what you do want to do is make it unique to you. Bring something new to the table. And this may actually be probably my favorite thing about using a published campaign, is that it lets the GM kind of laser focus their creativity. if you're trying to make your own world from scratch, it's very easy because you're trying to create so much to get this kind of blandness to it. Where it's just, I mean, because you've made so much, there are certain things that just fall through the cracks, certain things that just don't get fleshed out, what have you. But when you have most of the framework done, in terms of a published campaign, you can focus on the specific things that interact with your story that you're trying to tell, and you have a lot more energy and focus on those. So you can make the little details really pop and make it something that the party and the characters believe in. And that's really ultimately what you want to do. Whether you're looking at trying to make a brand new world or trying to make just a fun Forgotten Realms adventure, you've got to get the players to buy into it. And either way, that requires work and it requires creativity. I think the big difference is that of scale. But that's my general overview thoughts. I don't want to let this video run too long. It's been a while since I've done an RPG talk, so I wanted to go ahead and get this one up. One of the things I may be tackling at a later point is sort of my experiences with creating my own campaign world and running it for as long as I have, kind of the challenges and the trials that I've gone through. So if that's something that you guys are actually interested in, feel free to leave a comment below. And for that matter, if there's anything that jumps out at you that you think would be an interesting topic that you'd like to see me cover in a future RPG Talks video, I'd be more than happy to take a stab at just about anything. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did like it, please click the thumbs up, and if this is the first video of mine you've seen, subscribe. And I very much appreciate everyone for watching, and we will catch you next time. Bye-bye.